I was gonna make this video about Jake Virtanen because we had some updates, I guess. Not even really updates, just opinions thrown around about the Jake Virtanen trade stuff. But you know what I was thinking about, and I was like, yeah, Virtanen is a hero in Vancouver right now. Let's talk about Tanner Pearson instead, because we have an update on what exactly the Canucks' plans are going to be regarding Tanner Pearson, top 6 forward on the Canucks, top 6 forward in the league. Maybe more of a middle 6 guy is a better definition for Tanner Pearson, but his name has entered the trade rumor sphere for quite some time now, mostly because he is an upcoming pending UFA for the Vancouver Canucks, coming off of what was last year a career year. So right away you can see the value, because Pearson is indeed a Stanley Cup champion already, and the fact that he's having a career year in Vancouver, playing with Bo Horvat and Louis Eriksson, I guess, for the majority of last season. Yeah, he's been pretty good. He had 45 points in 69 games last year, 20-goal guy for the Canucks, really awesome to see. This year, he's dropped off a little bit, 10 points, 27 games played, 5 goals, 5 assists. But for the most part, Tanner Pearson has had still the same reliable nature in his game, the two-way presence, all that stuff that you like to see in a player. But Tanner Pearson is indeed expiring. And so, with the Vancouver Canucks in the position they're in now, where they suck in the standings, they have guys who are expiring, some of these guys, like Tanner Pearson, for example, doesn't have any trade protection. There is a conversation to be had about whether or not this guy could be seen as a valuable piece to other NHL teams who are looking for extended help towards their top 6 or their middle 6 heading into the playoffs. So, what we had was the recent video segment on TSN Insider Trading, where the hosts go over Tanner Pearson and the entire conversation that's going around about this guy right now. This is what Darren Dreger said about the situation. This is an article on ProHockeyRumors.com. I'll leave a link in the description. Also, leave a link to the insider trading video as well. Dreger notes that the Canucks would prefer to re-sign Tanner Pearson, who was coming off of a career year in 2019-20. Negotiations on a new contract have not yet begun, but Jim Benning would like to start talks soon because he wants to have a clear picture ahead of the deadline. If there's no meeting of the minds on a potential extension and seemingly little chance of progress ahead of the deadline, the Canucks will have to trade Pearson. The two-way winger is one of their more valuable rental trade chips, as depth options Brandon Sutter, Baertschi, and Jordy Ben all have lofty cap hits relative to their value, and veteran defensemen Alex Edler and Travis Hamonic have no movement clauses that they may not be eager to waive. If the Canucks cannot re-sign Pearson before the deadline, or at least get a handshake agreement in place, trading him to a contender is their best chance of leaving the deadline with a nice haul of picks or prospects without having to move a term player. Now that is a lot to unpack, but I just wanted to give my own thoughts about this right here, because the way the Canucks are going about this Tanner Pearson thing, it's kind of, let's just say, evolved. I saw a ton of people talking about Jim Benning in the perspective of him trying to correct mistakes, trying to not repeat mistakes, try not to run out of time, and trying to make sure that the things that he did before that were detrimental to this team do not happen again. The biggest thing that people are talking about when it comes to Benning mistakes has been Toffoli, Tanev, Markstrom, Stecher, Levo, all the guys that they had last season that left in free agency because, of course, the Canucks didn't have enough time. That is one aspect of it where the Canucks today are proactively trying to go out there and get, at the very least, a handshake agreement done with Tanner Pearson, where they say, okay, we're going to re-sign you to this amount of money, this amount of term. We're just going to have a handshake on it right now. We're not going to put the pen to the paper yet for whatever reasons may aspire in that situation. But if you get a handshake agreement done with Tanner Pearson, it looks like the Tanner Pearson contract will get renewed at some point, and the Canucks will not feel the need to trade him at the deadline. However, I do at least admire that there is an incentive now for Vancouver to go out there and know what they have in Pearson, know where they stand on the contracts, know what the Pearson party is wanting, because let's say they converse about it now in March, at the beginning of March, and they learn that Tanner Pearson wants X amount of dollars, X amount of years, and that's not really aligning with what they're capable of doing, especially with the plan they have for their players. Then okay, let's just trade him at the deadline in a month, because we know that what we have is not going to be able to stick around with the plan that we have for the other assets on this team. From there, we can go on with the extended Tanner Pearson trade talks. Now, I'll say it right here. I love that. I love that they're actually going out there and planning this time. And no, if you're wondering if I'm internally throwing shade at the, oh, we ran out of time to sign Toffoli and Tanev thing, that's not what I'm referring to here. You know what I'm referring to here? I'm referring to the other years. Let's say 2016. The Canucks have Radim Vrbata, they have Dan Hamhuis, both expiring UFAs. And the Canucks have the opportunity to trade them away at the deadline for picks, for prospects, whatever, and they don't. They keep him around even though they were in a declining year, and Canucks fans were kind of freaking out because, okay, now there is pressure to re-sign these guys, and if you don't re-sign these guys, then you lose them out essentially for nothing, and the season... It's not like you're saving the season by keeping Vrbata and Hamhuis around, are you? This team still finished, like, in the bottom 6 in the league that year. And so, the story unfolds with the way that we expect it to with Canucks luck, where Vrbata re-signs in Arizona and Dan Hamhuis goes to Dallas. The Canucks lost out on 2 assets that could have netted them profit if they traded them at a deadline for nothing. Now, with Tanner Pearson in 2021, the Canucks are trying to avoid the same mistake. Now, I will say, in 2018, they did avoid that mistake. Thomas Vanek was in a similar boat, and he got traded to Columbus for, I think it was like Jussi Jokinen and Tyler Mott. Remember that? Jokinen was a Canuck for a little bit? Crazy. But the Canucks have experienced both sides of the coin in these free agency situations. You have 2020, where Tanev, Stetcher, Levo, Markstrom, all these guys leave because you're too busy focusing on other things, and your planning beforehand was not really there. There weren't any handshake deals done with those guys because, hey, if there were, they would have been re-signed and they would have been Canucks still. With Tanner Pearson, they're trying to get that handshake done there. At the very least, just an agreement that says, okay, once the contract comes in the mail, you're signing it for this amount of money, you got a deal? Okay, we got a deal. Let's go, buddy. Just so they know whether or not Tanner Pearson will stay or will he go before the trade deadline even begins. And if they know that he's not going to be sticking around, then hey, okay, we'll just trade him away for prospects or whatever. And you know what? I appreciate that. I do, because it's a lot more planned out than what we have seen with the other guys. Impromptu decisions with Oliver Ekman-Larsson coming up here, Tyson Barrie becoming a free agent here, and all of a sudden you're turning all your attention to those guys and not really focusing on Tanev or Markstrom or Levo because you felt in your heart, oh, we'll just do it later. We got time. No, you didn't. You didn't have any time. You ran out of time. That's why Tyler Toffoli waited a few days before he signed a contract in Montreal. I swear to goodness gracious if the Vancouver Canucks find a way to mess this up again, and they end up letting Tanner Pearson walk after keeping him around at the trade deadline. If that happens, then I have no idea what's going to go on in my brain, because my psyche's already kind of ticked off from watching this team make decisions like this over the past few years. But at the very least, we know now what the plan is with Tanner Pearson, at least according to Darren Dreger. If Darren Dreger is wrong about this, then something else might happen. Maybe the Canucks just completely let him walk Dan Hamhuis style, which I would be very upset about, because ultimately the Vancouver Canucks got Tanner Pearson in the Eric Goodbranson trade, and we know how valuable Eric Goodbranson was. Imagine turning Eric Goodbranson into nothing, right? Sounds terrible, doesn't it? I'm joking, but you know, at the very end of the day, Tanner Pearson's an asset. Tanner Pearson's a guy that a lot of NHL teams would probably want if he became available, because say what you want about Tanner Pearson, he's good, he's bad, he's this, he doesn't score, whatever, he is still a middle 6 caliber guy on most NHL teams, a top 6 guy on the Vancouver Canucks. So talk to me in the comments what you thought about this Tanner Pearson topic over here. I hope you enjoyed this video. Kind of upset now thinking about that Dan Hamhuis and Vrbata thing again. Man, I really shouldn't have talked about it. So that's Roast 99. And bye.